I'm Tom from DIY Life Tech, and this is an answer to the question of where you should store your propane tank. So there's a couple of things to keep in mind when storing a propane tank. Firstly, keeping it outside is totally fine, even in the winter. Propane doesn't, you don't have to be concerned about freezing and that kind of thing, so it's totally fine to keep your tank outside. The only consideration with that, try to keep it out of direct sunlight. So I've got mine here on the side of the house in a shady area, and the reason is if it's in direct sunlight, then it's going to get hot from the sun, and that's going to increase the pressure inside the tank. And propane tanks have a pressure release valve, so it's not going to explode or anything, but you might cause that to open and you might lose propane from the tank. So better to keep it in the shade where it's not going to heat up in the sun. Otherwise, storing it outdoors, even in the winter, totally fine, not a problem to do. You can also store these inside, but it has to be in a detached building that's not connected to your living space. So if you have a shed or a detached garage, that's a totally fine place to store your propane cylinder, and that's going to keep it nicely protected from the elements, prevent any concerns about rust over the long time period. But if there were to be a leak in the tank, it's not going to go into, the gas is not going to go into your living space. Problem with using a garage that's attached to your living space or a basement, for example, is that if there were to be a leak in the tank, that gas is heavier than air. It's going to sink down, it's going to travel through your house, and it could potentially ignite if it gets into a gas appliance or if there's a spark. So you definitely do not want to store your propane cylinder anywhere where there's a living space attached. Best bet, I find, keep them outside and out of the sun, and that should work for you totally fine.